and someone who places his own interest above the nation's interest at every single turn. We cannot afford 4 more years of Donald Trump. No way. My name is Joe Walsh. I'm a former Republican congressman. I'm a conservative. I'm running because Donald Trump is not who we are.
Former GOP Congressman Joe Walsh of Illinois is challenging President Trump for the Republican nomination for president. And he joins us now. Welcome to the show. Good to have you on board. Welcome as a candidate now.
Hey, Mika, Joe, great to be with you both. Thank you.
Yeah, so Congressman, let me ask you, there are a lot of people who don't know who you are. Let's very quickly go through an evolution. You obviously, as you said yesterday, you were a Trump supporter. You actually were involved in birtherism. You said some very unkind things about Barack Obama that you later regretted, but you said something fascinating in an interview, and that was that it was looking at Donald Trump and his poor example that actually made you rethink some of the things that you had said. Explain.
Look, I think I'm partly responsible for Trump, and that's kind of a scary thing to say. Hey, Joe, Mika, I think 2 things got Trump elected. The Republican Party establishment was out of touch with their voters, and Trump took advantage of that. He touched upon this issue of people in this country illegally. The Republican Party ignored that issue. But then the other part that got Trump elected was I was part of the Tea Party class of 2010, and we went to Washington in 2010 to raise hell about the debt and the deficits. But me and a bunch of people like me, we got ahead of ourselves, and we engaged in this politics of personal destruction. I, speaking for myself, I would demonize my opponents. I would say bad personal things about President Obama, about Muslims, things that I regret. And those personal attacks that we got into too much, I think led to the personification of Trump, because Joe, Mika, that's all he is. He is one giant, ugly personal attack. He can't engage in the issues. So, yeah, I feel pretty darn responsible for having him in the White House.
So let's talk about the reason you got to Congress as a member of the Tea Party for smaller government, the same reason I ran in 1994. You look at the numbers now, the largest federal debt ever under Trump Republicans. The CBO came out and said the deficits under Donald Trump are going to be unsustainable. Over $1 trillion deficits every year, the biggest deficits in the history of this country in an expanding economy. You look at the budget that he just passed, the largest federal budget ever. Even Rand Paul said it was the most reckless fiscal thing the federal government had ever done. Along with going after Donald Trump for obviously all of the terrible things he's doing, are you going to be talking about fiscal sanity again? A government that tries to balance its budget, a government that tries to be responsible with taxpayers' money?
Yeah, and by the way, Joe, kudos to you, because this has been your issue. You've been talking about this almost every day for the last number of years. Yeah, look, when I was in Congress, we screamed at Obama every damn day for the debt and the deficits. Now all my former colleagues, they haven't said a word because Trump's their president. That's a shame. They're afraid of Trump. Here's the deal, though, Joe. Look, I care about the debt and the deficits. The tariffs are stupid. This election's about Trump. Period. This election is a referendum on him, the man. He's unqualified. He's unfit. He's a child. He's reckless. He's erratic. He's a narcissist. He's mean. He's cruel. He lies every time he opens his mouth. I don't think you take on this fight. I certainly would never take on this fight, put myself out there, unless I was making this a referendum on Trump. He's unfit, Joe and Mika, and if he's our nominee in 2020, the Republican Party is going to get spanked, because young people don't like Trump, women don't like Trump, and people who live in the suburbs don't like Trump. I heard you earlier, Joe. The Republican Party right now is at a real crossroads. Because of Trump, they're in trouble.
Yeah, big trouble. And you can look at his numbers. You can look at the numbers in a lot of Senate races. Michael Steele, you've run the Republican Party before. It's looking like another political tsunami is coming the Republican Party's way if Donald Trump's at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard, Joe, for the president to sustain the races beneath the presidential campaign. The House with a deficit of 30-some seats, with retirements now on top of that. The Senate, while a lot of people don't believe it's in play, with the right alignment on the Democratic side, that could change. So I want to ask the congressman, and it's good to see you again. It's been a long time. 2010 and the battles there. But you do raise a very interesting point revolving around your candidacy, and that is where you began talking about the kind of constitutional conservatism, fiscal responsibility, some of the more traditional values of the president, of the party. Could you sort of walk through what changed for you that flipped the script to see someone like Trump in 2016 as a better solution for the nation, not the party, for the nation? And then now, as you look at your own presidential bid, look at that ideal, if you will, and go, that's not where America needs to be. What was that transformation for you?
Hey, Michael, I voted for Trump in 2016. I didn't love him. I didn't like him. He wasn't Hillary. And to be honest, at that time, I figured Trump was just a goof. Maybe he'd hire a couple good people and a couple good things would get done. He lost me pretty quickly in that first year when it became clear to me that almost every time he opened his mouth, he lied. But he lost me for good, Michael, in Helsinki over a year ago when he stood in front of the world and said, I believe Putin and not my own people. That was it for me. And look, I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times 2-3 weeks ago. He's unfit. Somebody needs to primary him, and I'm stunned, Joe and Michael and Mika, that no Republican this year has stepped up to make the moral case against Trump, because most of them believe privately everything I say publicly about